I'll be honest, I'll be frank. I don't care if you do this on the podcast, but I have OCD. It's not the OCD where I have to like tap 3 times or clean things. It manifests in different ways. It's mainly existential, where it's like rooted in a fear of dying. But one of the things that they do when you have OCD is they give you exposure therapy. And literally they're trying to condition your brain to be exposed to a stressor and not have this deleterious response. This works, but it's also very stressful. It's like one of the worst things I've ever had to do, but it works.
Dr. Bill Evans, I saw recently a video. You said, can you run faster with low testosterone? You take people through a study. It seems like a low T take, but I want to hear it nonetheless.
So is your question whether or not you can run fast with low T?
I think the title seems like something that would be made from ChatGPT Claude. How do I rage bait my followers with a study? But there seemed to be a legitimate study that you can run faster with low testosterone. So I'm curious to have you walk me through it.
Yeah, 100% rage bait, like 100%. I was like, some testosterone bro is going to get like really upset about this. And I was like, I don't really care.
Dom Schluter.
Nah, it's fine. So basically what the study showed is that 2 things can be true at once. You can improve performance and you can have low T. Like you can be literally defined as having androgen deficiency and you can still improve your performance. So one of the takes that I saw in the comments, remember I usually post in Ghost, but some guy was like, this is ridiculous. Like you don't know what you're talking about. You know, this is all correlational. You don't know how they would have performed had they actually done an intervention where they took testosterone XYZ. And I'm like, that's not the point of the post. Like I recorded a whole podcast on it where I compiled like 5 or 6 studies on distance runners and testosterone and androgen deficiency. And basically what we find is that if you train for a long time, your testosterone levels drop. But they're not dropping like I think people think they go to like 0, but you have to understand that the acute exercise burst that you get from like 90 minutes of threshold, like if you were to run a half marathon, the increase in total testosterone, not free, but total testosterone is more than the basal drop that we see from pre to post 18 weeks of hard training. So what I'm trying to say is like the dynamic range or how much
you get a testosterone boost from running fast for 90 minutes.
Yeah, if you do threshold for 90 minutes, it'll bump your testosterone.
Wow.
But it's not like, this is my point, is like, it's not like it's insane. Like I'd have to find this study. It's by Anthony Hackney. And the thing is, like, I know Tony Hackney. Like, Dr. Hackney was at UNC when I was there. He was like, I was a participant in his study. I was a participant in one of these studies. So, you know, like, the point of the post is, in short, that when you do a lot of running, yes, it does decrease your testosterone. Yes, it can increase your risk for androgen deficiency, but performance can still improve at a normal rate. And frankly, if you're training hard, both are probably true. Anybody that's training hard is going to see their testosterone like drop a little bit. They're also going to see their performance improve. And kind of the last thing, it's so funny because I knew you were going to ask about this. But the one thing I want to bring up too is that when you're like, because I bet we'll talk about hybrid athletes, because I know you're a budding hybrid athlete, whether you know it or not. You're on the way. I know it's going to happen. But
mediocre. Real quick, I love this saying where it's like hybrid athletes they're not fast enough to be considered runners and they're not strong enough to be considered lifters. So they just find a term that makes them feel good about themselves. It's basically hybrid athletes. Trevor Giampa is the only exception there.
I didn't say it. Is Trevor the dude with big biceps that runs like?
Oh, he was the guy I texted you about. Yeah, he was the guy I texted you about. I want to connect you guys.
He's a freak. Yeah, that guy's
24,
a freak.
228 marathon, benches 315. Yeah, but anyways,
so
didn't take away from your point.
No. So I was thinking about him. I was like, how can he run so fast and be so strong? Well, he does downhill marathons. No, I'm joking. I don't know that to be true. I'm making that up. But the thing is like when we look at marathon performance, I just was reading a bunch of papers on this. The strongest predictor of marathon performance is your velocity at your lactate threshold. That is by far the strongest predictor of your marathon performance. And you can look at VO2 max. You can look at the percent of your VO2 max that your lactate threshold is. We call that fractional utilization. You can look at all these parameters. Running economy is by far the most important parameter. Like how fast you are at your lactate threshold is the only thing that matters. Point being, at a physiological level, when you have a lot of testosterone, your muscles get bigger, they increase their size. And you can see that in Trevor. I mean, he's jacked. Two things. One, this doesn't necessarily happen systemically. Okay. And two, if it does happen systemically, like in your legs, performance will drop. Okay. That's why you're not seeing Kenyans with big muscles. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't run a fast marathon with big muscles. But when you look at Kajelcha, or when you look at who's the guy
Sebastian Sawe.
Yeah, Sebastian Sawe is drawing a blank. All I could think was John Career. But they don't have big muscles. They're very lean. They have very low muscle mass because at a basic fundamental level, diffusion distance, the distance that a material has to travel across a barrier, is one of the primary determinants of oxygen consumption and oxygen delivery. So like if you have big muscles, that means the distance between a capillary in that muscle and to any region of that muscle is quite large. And so we actually want a very small diffusion distance. And to get that, you can either A, increase the number of capillaries, which we do. It's correlated with marathon performance at 0.62. That's the R value. Or you can decrease the muscle size, the cross-sectional area. That's why you run better. You're better able to deliver. So when you have the reason that you can run faster with lower testosterone is because testosterone's like, it is an anabolic steroid. It will increase muscle mass. It can help with recovery, but by and large, it'll increase muscle mass as long as you have enough caloric intake. So
it's like at a point it offsets. Yeah.
Exactly. At some point it becomes bad. Like the lower testosterone is partly advantageous. It's preventing the increase in muscle mass that you might see from running 120 miles a week. That's a ton of muscle loading. So I'm just saying, like, I think people hear low T and they're like, it's bad. I'm like, no, it's not.
Well, but let's have the conversation. It's maybe not bad for performance, but your health is...
Oh, okay, yeah. Let me be clear. It can be bad for... I said this in the post. It can be bad for libido, bone health, even mental health. It can be bad for reproductive health. In fact,
especially if you're a man.
People who, yeah, well, yes, like this is more relevant for men. There are some interesting studies on testosterone in females, but that starts to get into a murky area I don't feel like touching. But what I was saying is like, in the post, I even say this is like, testosterone is important for overall health. But at some level, when you're trying to run as fast as you can, you've made a decision that is maybe not the most important thing to you. And I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm not here to judge like any of those things. But there are studies that show that when you run too much, like too much, it can start to be detrimental to your overall health. Now, conversely, if you don't run at all, that's maybe worse.
Totally. I don't know of any high-level runners I know who I look at their training and their lifestyle and I say, this is like the healthiest way you could live. But it's a trade-off. It's also probably not healthy NBA or NFL, the way that those guys push their body through game
100%.
nights and through training. And so sport in and of itself, to get to the upper echelons of it, you need to sacrifice things that normal people wouldn't be willing to, including health. I personally am not willing to do that, but a lot of people are. And if I was as talented or maybe as hardworking, not just boil it down to talent, maybe I'd be willing to go the extra inch. What's fascinating though, and I'll share this off air, but I don't want to get a cease and desist. There are some professional running groups, both in the past and presently, they'll get their blood levels checked every single week, including testosterone, so that they're right at the line. This is what Salazar used to do with his group. It's what some people still do. I feel ethical, moral implications with that, where I'm like, what they're doing isn't illegal at all. It's not illegal to get your blood drawn every week and check your levels and go up to the maximum allowed amount. But it's the gray zone. And so it's like,
well,
how comfortable are you with the gray zone?
Yeah, and I think the question becomes like, how are they increasing that testosterone? So all of this came out of, I was talking to some collegiate athletes, T1 athletes at a good, an elite program. and they were asking about testosterone. And I was like, to be honest, like when I think about performance enhancing drugs for distance runners, testosterone does not come to mind. And when you
That's
look at
interesting. Didn't
testosterone,
Salazar, wasn't testosterone a big one though for his athletes?
I mean, yes, but they were also doing a ton of other things.
Yeah.
Like,
So it's hard to
and
know what
but
was working, what wasn't.
right, and like one of the things that's interesting is like, and I truthfully don't know everything about the Salazar thing. Like, I'll be honest, I'm not super well read on that situation. But what I'll say is I know that thyroid meds were something that a lot of their athletes maybe had checked. I don't know if there was legitimate issues or not, but at the end of the day, when you take thyroxine, right, there's a study where they fed rats thyroids, like because they couldn't isolate thyroxine back in the day, so they just fed rats thyroids and to increase their thyroxine concentrations, and they increased their mitochondrial density by like 40%. Now, again, it's not a perfect study, but like it suggests that that thyroxine has more of an effect than just lowering your body mass. Like there could be metabolic consequences to help you perform better. Now, I'm not saying that testosterone's not important. Like of the studies that I looked at, the only benefit that I found from taking testosterone, whether I think it was like a cream or injections, I don't even think there was an injection study, was in older men with low T. And yeah, it did increase their strength. It did increase their cardiorespiratory endurance. But we're talking like 55, 60-year-old men who have documented low testosterone. And, you know,
Have
in
you seen the
women, yes.
testosterone epidemic with men? The
No, is
numbers
it
just
low?
going down over time. Oh, dude, you don't
Ooh.
know about this?
I mean, I'm not hip to the test space.
Okay, we're gonna live look at this.
It's probably stress related. I mean, I'm not surprised.
Well, stress, plastics, microplastics is a big reason apparently that they're talking about. But I do want to
Heard a
bring
lot
this
about
up.
these microplastics.
Yeah, not very good. Not very good. The average American today, ready for this, digests a credit card worth of plastic every single week.
Mmm.
Yeah. So they're
Yum.
correlating it with like low fertility for women, low fertility for
Ooh.
men, low testosterone for men. I do want to be very clear, and I think you'll back me up on this. Again, I'm certainly not advocating for low testosterone, specifically if we're talking about health. I think what you're saying is simply runners overly tweak, to use a Gen Z term, overly tweak about how low testosterone might affect performance. I will say,
Yes.
interestingly enough, Ryan Hall credited his low testosterone with why he retired from the sport of running. He just
Mm.
felt terrible, fatigued all the time.
That's
That
what'll
was his
happen when you
reason.
run 100
Yeah.
130 miles a week. Like, you know, some of that's low T, but it's also that he was training at such a high level for so long. Like, I've run 100-mile weeks. Like,
But
it is
explain to me
exhausting.
correlation versus causation, because it's like, wouldn't 130
Mhm.
miles a week be part of the reason his testosterone's so low?
Well, it's yes, 100%. Like 1 billion%. That is again, it's not causation. The only way we could get a causation is to perform some procedure like androgen deprivation therapy or whatever to try and lower his testosterone. So there's two things that come to mind for me that I'll come to in a second. But in terms of the correlation and causation, you're not going to be able to tease that out. But the thing about running 130 miles a week is that you're experiencing such a high level of skeletal muscle damage, like irrespective of the amount of testosterone in your system, that you are always going to be sore. Your tendons are undergoing a massive amount of loading. When you run, body, I think it's like 5 to 7 times your body weight, right? So your tendons, your joints, your muscle, your nervous system. Like if you were to look at his HRV, I mean, his nervous system was fried probably like all the time. And I don't know, I've never talked to Ryan. I'd be happy to chat. I'd be curious to talk to him about it. But, you know, so all of these things are happening all at once. Like the whole physiological picture is messed up. Um, and the reason that Dr. Hackney looks at testosterone in the first place is because he's interested in overtraining. So that's like his whole thing was like he's interested in overtraining and understanding overtraining. So, you know, like there's enough rationale behind that to where one of the leaders in overtraining research is now known for understanding androgen deficiency in long distance runners. Like there's enough there, but there's a study that comes to mind. So in people with metastatic prostate cancer, one of the treatments that they get is androgen deprivation therapy. So basically, they put them on a low dose hormone that turns off all of their, actually, it might even be a high dose, I'm not sure entirely, but it turns off their normal systems, right? So basically, you have normal feedback loop. When something goes really high, your body turns it off, right? And they gave these people, when they give these people this medicine, it turns off like all of their, they have no testosterone. And in fact, they start to exhibit like almost like a woman going through menopause. Like they get hot flashes. They start to have like adiposity around their breasts. So like, it's like they start to feel like women. And we measured their VO2 maxes, we measured their muscle strength. We actually looked at their performance. Now they also have cancer and they're on chemotherapy. So there's confounding variables here. But yeah, performance drops. Like, yeah, they don't do great. Yeah, they don't have as good of a response. But again, those are people who are totally deprived of testosterone. So I think the thing that I'm trying to point to is like it's a continuum. It's not like it's not an on or an off switch, right? It's a continuum. It's a spectrum. Every case is different. And if you're worried about low T, I found a study. I'm not sponsored by is it Shilajit? Is that what it's called? Shilajit. It's like a Himalayan black tar. I had never heard of it until a college athlete asked me about it. There's a study showing it increases free and total testosterone by like 20%. So like, if you're worried about low T, I don't think it's banned by WADA.
Do you know about Tongkat Ali?
Tongkat Ali is another one.
So I take that. I've taken that for like a year and a half. I think that is the most impactful supplement I've ever taken, bar none.
Yep,
I actually genuinely feel a difference.
That Tongkat Ali, Shilajit, vitamin D. There's one more, Riley Witt, who you and I are both friends with and familiar with. He knows like all of these things, but
yeah, that dude's
he knows everything there is to know. But there is another one, I can't remember what it's called. But
have you taken Tongkat Ali?
No, I retain muscle mass very easily. So
you should take it. I feel like even cognitively, I've noted you feel way more vitality. I'll send you what I take. You can check it out. You can do a study on me one of these days.
Hey, I'd happily do a study on you. Send it to me for free, and I'll take it. How's that?
Okay, easy.
As I get older, as I get older, yeah, I'm interested in it, but I have some cardiac stuff that I'm a little more cautious. So
scientific data show that the average men's testosterone levels have dropped significantly over the past 50 years, with studies indicating a decline of over 50% since the 1970s. A 30-year-old man today generally has lower testosterone than a 30-year-old man did decades ago, driven largely by modern lifestyle shifts, obesity, and environmental factors.
Yeah, I think that's honestly, that's a function of like, I think there's probably some vitamin D stuff going on there because we sit inside work jobs. And then, dude, it's obesity and sedentary lifestyle. I bet if you overlaid that graph with obesity or like average BMIs, I bet they'd
correlate
like almost 1 and 1 together.
So it's probably more beneficial to talk about it than you're funny. Probably more like better suited for the general population to have that conversation rather than a runner in 2026 probably has the same testosterone that a runner in 1970s because the things that give low testosterone in 2026 like obesity don't necessarily apply.
That's a great way to put it. I'll have to look to see if there's a study actually. That's a good point. But
next time, look at microplastics, man. They're ruining everything. I mean, they're finding
cardiologists.
It's like graphic.
They said they found microplastics inside of a coronary plaque. That's not good.
Well, I was gonna say TMI, but they're finding like microplastics in like male sperm and all this stuff, and so even
I heard
autism levels are correlated with it. Yeah, we're putting plastics in everything, so scary, man. Well, that was a good testosterone deep dive. Just very practically, like SparkNotes version, 60 seconds or less. How are most of these studies done, and how does someone know whether a study is legitimate or not?
Well, if it's in a peer-reviewed journal, it's probably credible. So what that means is like when a study wants to get published, basically you have to, one, go through an IRB, Institutional Review Board. So there's an ethical committee in the university that says like, hey, this is ethical, right? From there, you then have to submit a report to the IRB with all of your data, right? So that's why when people falsify data, they get in a lot of trouble. So from there, you do your study, right? And you have to have a very specific protocol, like that says, this is exactly what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to protect the participants. This is the exact procedures. This is my data collection sheet. It gets reviewed by an ethical committee that says, like, okay, this is legit. Like these methods are not confounded by some methodological error, right? From there, you do the study. Okay. Now, all of that data is de-identified. It exists in a private location under lock and key in a separate physical location. You know, there's a ton of privacy stuff. Once you're done with that, you have your data, you run your analyses. Those analyses need to be pre-identified. In other words, we say they are a priori. They're not ad hoc. So ad hoc means like after the fact. A priori means you've already identified what hypotheses you're going to test. You would have outlined that in your IRB. This is to stop people from doing a bunch of exploratory or correlational analyses that aren't legit, right? Now, that doesn't mean that that doesn't happen. That doesn't mean that things don't get through. Typically, what you'd say if you'd done that is like, we did some ad hoc analyses. Even though our hypothesis was this, we found this, so we did this ad hoc to figure something out. And I think from there, once you do your analyses, you're on 4 or 5 researchers, right? Some of these researchers are very senior. You're not doing this in a silo by yourself. So you send it to your co-authors. Your co-authors take a look at it. Finally, you send it to a journal. The journal has an editor. The editor determines if they like it or not. Then they send it to other experts in the field that are going to take a look at it. They're going to review it. So I have a paper under review right now. We got roasted. So basically, it's like your worst nightmare. You have to have thick skin. They're going to tell you you suck. They're going to be like, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks. This data doesn't make sense. You know, like you're a trash researcher, quit your job, go live in a hole. And you're like, oh, okay, this sucks. I hate myself. And because I just spent like 6 years doing this study. So then you write revisions. You send it back to the reviewers. They send revisions back. You go back and forth. Finally, they're like, all right, it's good enough. You can publish it, right? Then it finally goes into print. And that's finally when you're going to have, that's why it's peer reviewed. It's reviewed by experts and peers in the field. They're not paid. Like this is all volunteer. It's part of the service of being an academic. And then it goes into a paper. Now, not every journal is the same. So if you read it in a certain journal and we have a metric that determines roughly how good that journal is, if the impact factor is 1, then I look at that paper and I'm like, doesn't mean it's bad, but there's probably limitations here. Now, if it's in Nature or New England Journal of Medicine or Cell Bio, like these big journals, and it's like, okay, this is pretty foolproof. Like these reviewers are very rigorous. They have a ton of supplemental data that's not even in the publication. So you kind of have to know ball. Like if this is why I think like if somebody tells me a study says X or Y and they don't have an academic or research background, I kind of take it with a grain of salt because I'm like, even if it's not in their field, you know? So all that to say, that's how it happens. That's how you know it's legit. If it's on PubMed, it's probably legit. If the impact factor of the journal is good, it's probably legit.
What about big pharma influencing stuff? Or is that too tinfoil hat to say?
I'm not going to say it doesn't happen. Like, I think it depends what circumstance you're referring to. So like,
The fact that Harvard and Stanford medical schools that boost most doctors and most of the people who are writing these come from, like almost are 100% funded by big pharma.
yeah, I mean, like at some level, someone's got to fund the research. Right? So like, I'll give you an example. And does that add in a conflict of interest? Maybe, but there is no alternative. Like you don't have another option. So at some level, it's like someone might say, well, you do, you have the NIH and blah, blah, blah. But at some level, it's just the way it is. But if you think about the big pharma example, I'll give you a tiny example. I want to study NRF2 supplements. I want to study bicarb supplements. Well, I don't have any funding for that. My institution isn't going to give me money. So who am I going to go to get that money? Well, I'm going to go to the companies that are interested, have a vested interest in that product. We come to an agreement where we say, look, I am not doing this research to give you the findings that you want. This is truly an independent research thing. I have the right to publish the data, no matter what it says, like whatever. And then that's the end of it. Like we wrote a contract saying that that's what it is. And you're going to fund me to do this study because you believe in the product. So, yeah, like I'm not saying that there's not corruption at any level. Like there are problems with every system, but I would say in terms of like like call me a glass half full kind of person. Like, and you can look at the body of work. That's the other thing. You have to look at the body of work. If you're only looking at a single study, yeah, it's a problem. That's why you got to look at it from different researchers, different labs, different journals, different approaches. At some point, you're going to be able to see the forest through the trees.
Talking about running and its health for you, at what point does running become generally detrimental to someone's health? Like, have you seen a certain amount of mileage or a certain amount of quality of workouts per week that running starts to actually become detrimental towards health? Like, as I go into this next season of life and I think about my running, I personally don't necessarily care to push it the upper bounds where it's going to have negative health effects. I don't want low T, even if I'll run faster with it. So like, are there any studies on that, or just what's your general, opinion from what you know about yourself and others?
Yeah, there are definitely studies. I can't tell you what the exact timeline is right now, but I can pull one off the top of my head. So the Hackney paper I talked about, which might have been a letter to the editor, but they had people running. They took people who were running more than 80 kilometers per week. And in that group, I'm pretty sure it was like 30 to 40 to 50% of them who had been running more than 80 kilometers per week for over a year had what would be defined as androgen deprivation, so low T. So that's maybe one checkpoint is 80 kilometers per week. Don't quote me on that. I don't have, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Another metric that stands out to me from those series of papers is that if you train for 5 years, if it was like 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, basically 1, 5, 10, 15, basically what they saw is the testosterone went like this. It went down and then back up, right? Not all the way back up, but basically what it's like 1 year, it goes down a little, 5 years, it goes down more, 10 years, it's as low as it's going to be, 15, it was like not significantly different from the lowest level. So, and then what they showed is that the older you are, if you're over the age of, I think like 45, I think that's the number they used in the paper, then you've basically gone through what I call menopause, not just menopause, because women, they're experiencing the same thing with training density and training intensity and their estrogen levels. So it's not just a male thing. This affects females too. You're going to see just with training age and aging in general, it's going to happen. It's part of life. You're not going to live forever. Unless you're a legend, because legends never die. So,
Brian Johnson.
So what I was going to say is
that dude's going to get in a car accident, by the way, or like get a heart attack, something. Do you know Brian Johnson, the guy who's trying to live forever?
Yeah, he's the dude who's like
optimizes every part of his life. Like walks outside with an umbrella and
that would be so sad if he dies in a tragic death. Like he and then they do the autopsy and they're like, oh, turns out he had like perfect physiology. It was just his helicopter driver. No, sorry. So then the other thing I would say is like the other piece of this, and there are some metrics that I like. I talked to an athlete today about burnout. I mean, you got to look at the whole picture, right? Like look at your HRV, if you find that your HRV is constantly like plummeted, that's probably not good for you. You're probably on the brink of overtraining. If you're constantly getting stress fractures, not a good sign. If you constantly have tendon issues where you can't even train for more than 2 or 3 months consistently, probably not a good sign. If your personal or your social life is compromised, if your marriage, if you're married and your marriage is crumbling, like these are all things to me.
But my BQ, Dr. Evans, I need my BQ to feel good about myself.
Dude, no, I mean, you have to think about it like more holistically. And I think you and I, we were talking about this before the podcast, but like, it's easy to fall into a hole where you're just like, I need to do more. 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 And someone asked me like, how many miles do I need to run to be good at the marathon? And my response was, how many can you run? Like when you look at studies on volume, and I said this on the last time I was on your podcast, like it is the strongest determinant that splits elite or sub-elite marathoners from everybody else. And, I think it is very individualized. Like my BMI is 23. Okay. That's a healthy BMI. I'm barely in the normal range, but I'm in there. And, like I cannot handle 130 miles per week. I can't. My tissue is dependent. My collagen is collagen. Doesn't matter if it's yours or mine or Faith Kipyegon or Eliud Kipchoge's, right? It's a tissue. And my weight is higher. So I'm hitting that same tissue with higher force. So my point is like, it is going to be highly individualized. There are some thresholds, like there was something recently I read that like if you did more than 8 ultra marathons a year or something, you're more likely to find some coronary X or coronary Y or fibrotic tissue in your heart, or I can't remember even what the benchmarks were. So there are some like studies coming out that says like, yeah, guess what? There's such a thing as too much running. But the counter that I often bring to that is similar to what I said earlier. Most people are sedentary. Most people are experiencing, not most people, but we know that body fat percentage or whatever, however you want to benchmark it, and this is a complex issue, is on the rise. And that is more detrimental to me, to overall health and well-being, than increasing my risk for a pacemaker when I'm at 65 because I ran. So, like I think you kind of have to, it's not that it's either or, right? But you have to enjoy your life. Like if you enjoy running and it's dangerous for you, so is scuba diving, so is rock climbing. These are risks that we take. So all that to say, I know it's a long way. There's no clear answer. There are some suggestions, but it is highly individualized and comes down to what you as an individual enjoy.
Do you think we were born to run? There was that big book that came out before my time, Born to Run, by I think Christopher McDougall, I think was what his name was.
Yes.
I didn't read it, but I know the premises of the book. We would chase antelope over 100-mile distances back in the day, and our glutes were made to stabilize, our body and all of this. How much of that do you think is true, that the human body was genuinely made to run?
I think it's very true. I mean, and I haven't read that book either, but I suspect he's an anthropologist, and I absolutely think we're built to run. Are we perfectly optimized to run? No. Like I think if you look at our low back issues, like being a bipedal erect human is not the best thing for our low backs. But like at some point we were hunters and gatherers, we were foragers, we were like at some level we've evolved to be physically active. And if that were not true, then being physically inactive would be more beneficial for our long-term health. And we know that's not true. Like there's enough research to show that exercise is truly medicine, to where I 100% believe that we were meant to run. This is why I have a hot take and we talked about it on the last podcast from a few months ago, where I was like, anybody can be an Olympian. Now, that is like, there's so much nuance to that. But the point behind that take is like, there's no single gene that says you will be an Olympian and you will not. And Franz, I forget the dude's name. His name's like something, I think it's something Wagner, but he was this like thrower in the 1970s where they looked at his muscle fiber typing and all these parameters. And guess what? His muscle fiber type, like 70% of it was slow twitch, and he was an Olympic gold medalist thrower or something like that. They looked at his brother, same scenario, but 80% of his type 2, 80% of his muscle volume was made of explosive fibers. Point being, these things are highly trainable. And you kind of made the point earlier that like, I know, like if I really, really train really hard, I'm pretty sure I could run a 2:30 marathon or 2:29 or whatever. I believe that. Like I believe that this dynamic range is highly scalable, and these hybrid athletes are demonstrating that every single day. Druid Haynes, love him or hate him. If he goes and gets the OTQ, to me, that will be the clearest form of evidence. And I don't know if he's clean or what the deal is. This dude's insane, but cleanest form of evidence that anybody can get this job done if they just sell out for it. Like he's training with Rory Linkletter. He's training with, who's the woman he's training with? Oh my gosh. She was like third best marathoner. Whatever. Anyways, he's training with the best of the best. If he gets it done, I'm bought in. Genetics, they matter somewhat, but they're not going to stop you.
I mean, one of my favorite questions to ask people, it's not the Olympic question. It's, can anyone go D1? Or can anyone?
Oh yeah, we talked about this last time.
About that. I think you can. I think you can.
I think. I mean, that's exactly my point. I think you can. I think that there are extraneous variables you can't
and
control.
Those who disagree are those who tried and didn't.
I think there are extraneous variables you can't control, obviously. But I also think, and I think in some ways, like to your point, can anybody go D1? I would say the answer is no if you're looking at the holistic picture. Like if you're looking at everything and you're saying like, well, you can't control who your parents were from a genetic perspective, in the same way you can't control the fact that they you grew up in a certain situation where maybe you didn't have access to that sport. It's like, well, of course you can't go D1 in that sport. You didn't even know it existed or whatever it is, like, so in that sense, I think there's something to be said. But if you're saying like we take a test tube and we take a test tube and we put it in this perfect petri dish of environment, can we get it to go D1? And everything is optimized. Like the parents are 100% bought in, the kids 100% bought in because they did some like child psychology, then yeah, I think it's possible. So that's really my point there, is that like it's.
How do you quantify mindset? I don't know if you know the story of Joe Burrow. Do you know the story of Joe Burrow? Do you know Joe Burrow? Do you follow football?
Yeah, I know Joe Burrow.
Yeah. Absolute dog.
I'm wearing orange for him today.
Yeah. Ohio State shanked him, transfers to LSU, balls out, greatest football team of all time, 2019 LSU, I think it was the year. Wins the Heisman, wins the national championship. What'd you say?
A bias.
No, I'm an Ohio State fan, and I'm saying LSU had the best season of all time.
But he's from Ohio. He's in Cincinnati.
Oh, sure. But I don't know.
Anyways, I digress.
I don't know if an Ohio
State
guy would be humping up SEC team, so I think it's decently unbiased.
So finish your point.
Yeah, incredible. Goes on to the Bengals, whatever. He's had a good career thus far, makes it to the Super Bowl in year 2. But in Ohio, growing up, Athens, I think is where he's from. Down 7 points, 30 seconds to go, scores 9 points. I think he had like 7 free throws, layup or something. And the coach was a psychology professor at Ohio. I might get some of these details wrong, but I think I'm getting most correct. Psychology professor at the University of Ohio in Athens goes up to Joe's parents and tells them, he's like, hey, like, you should be lucky that Joe is in sports. He goes, he illustrates the type of mental qualities that basically his cortisol and his stress levels do not change depending on the environment. He said, we only see this in first responders, serial killers, and like the highest performers. So he's like, you're glad your son's in basketball, not the next Dexter, was what he like famously said. Joe was 9, and then goes on to have the football career he has. But essentially, there's this innate, I doubt it was trained at that point. He was 9 years old, where this kid's stress and cortisol level didn't change with the pressure. He scores 9 points in the last 30 seconds. How much do you think, in terms of like athletes being really, really good, is actually mindset, and how much of mindset is trainable?
Okay, how much of mindset is trainable? I think it's like most things. Like there are physiological underpinnings here where your brain is plastic. It can change. It's bendable, but it's like a muscle fiber. We can't take a type 1 fiber and turn it to type 2X. We might be able to bend it and move it towards a direction. And if we bend enough of those neural pathways, then all right, we get an outcome that is desirable, that is like in line with whatever. So I think that it's very trainable. I do think that the adage of like you can't teach an old dog new tricks, I think there's truth to that. But I'll give an example. So I'll be honest, I'll be frank. I don't care if you do this on the podcast, but I have OCD. So it's not the OCD where I have to like tap 3 times or clean things. It manifests in different ways. It's mainly existential, where it's like rooted in a fear of dying. Right? So one of the things that they do when you have OCD is they give you exposure therapy. This is an option, and literally they're trying to condition your brain to be exposed to a stressor and not have this deleterious response, right? Where it's like traditional operant conditioning, like stressor, and then like I get the reward that I want. So this works. Exposure therapy is highly effective. It is very supported by research. It's also very stressful. It's like one of the worst things I've ever had to do, but it works. And my point there is that like this is a behavior, right? It's a cognitive experience and then a behavior in response to it. And so I absolutely think, and this is the whole basis of sports psychology, that you can bend these behaviors. The cognitive side, like you might not be able to put the thoughts out. Like 9-year-old Joe Burrow might have been sitting there totally afraid, thinking like whatever, but his behavior did not become altered by that stress. And stress affects performance. Look up Brad Hadfield. He's a researcher in the field. He does a lot on this stuff. It does affect performance, but it is absolutely trainable to where you can, if exposed in the right manner, respond to that stressor in a way that is more advantageous. And so Yes, I absolutely think it's trainable. I think there are some people who are not as anxious inherently. I mean, you know, people who like roller coasters and people who don't.
It is trainable though, as I'm talking to you, because when I've given public speeches or panels, I've gotten way less stressed over time as I do it. So even that to me, I'm like, if you put yourself in the environment enough times, this was crazy. I don't recommend doing this to any kid, but I would intentionally run on busier roads growing up because I would sense I got really stressed by crowds in races. I feel like it would kind of get me tense and I'd breathe faster. And again, I don't know if it was the safest option. I wasn't going on like crazy busy roads, but the times when I had to like run on a busy road, I would intentionally use that as an opportunity to try and calm myself down because there's a very similar response of like cars going by you, the sounds, the feels, all of that. Yeah, exactly. So I do think it's trainable even from my own experience. Like, I mean, I bet your first ever podcast episode, you were slightly nervous. You probably don't get nervous at all anymore.
Well, it's interesting. I was thinking about that. The first time I came on this podcast, I was like shaking. I was like running upstairs, like, oh my gosh, it'll be perfect. And now I'm kind of like, that's Dom. It's a good friend of mine. We're chatting. This is chill. I'm just like, you know, Dom, you get more comfortable with it. That's called habituation, right? You're habituating. It's like a deer that lives in Yellowstone, or I guess in a neighborhood, and it walks up to people. You know, it's accustomed to it. It's a learning process. So again, I don't think you can take someone who's inherently anxious and turn them into like the most calm person ever, but I absolutely think that you can bend that behavior with enough psychology and appropriate like interventions. I think you can.
What do you think is a take you used to have or a video you used to put out that you completely disagree with now?
Oh man, that's such a good question. Okay. Oh man, some of them that I put out is to create conversation. So like I don't always, they're not always there to be like a take that I like 100% would die on that hill. But some of the ones that I would probably, some of the ones I don't stand by as like authoritatively are probably the one that Faith Kipyegon is closer to breaking four flat, not Faith, but like a woman is closer to breaking four flat in a mile than a man is to breaking, I think, 140 in the 800. And that's mainly rooted in like some data that I've looked at between males and females. Like if you look across the data, women, I think it's like 33 seconds on average. Like if a woman runs 4:33 in a mile, it's basically like running sub 4 in a mile for a man, right? And so if you carry that conversion all the way out, then Faith Kipyegon's, what's she run, like 4:07 or something like that?
Yeah, 4:07, I think.
Okay. So what? So that's whatever, subtract 34 seconds from that, whatever that is. I mean, her mile time would blow Josh Kerr's out of the water, right? So, you know, that's kind of one that I'm like, you know.
Do you think Faith Kipyegon's mile time is more impressive than Josh Kerr's world record?
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is like, well, I think it depends how you look at it. Like, because it's not perfectly linear. Like, you can't run a 0-second mile. This is one thing I try and tell people is like, if you go from 1 to 2 miles per hour on a treadmill, you go from a 60-minute mile to a 30-minute mile, but you only change the mile per hour 1, right? But if I go from 11 miles per hour to 12 miles per hour, that's a 520 mile to a 5 flat. I've changed the mile per hour by 1 mile per hour, but the minutes per mile go from 520 to 5 flat. And that's because you can never run a 0-second mile. You can't. It's asymptotic. So you can't make like a perfect conversion there. I think they're both at the edge of they're both at the edge of human physiology. And so to me, they're both like incredibly impressive. Okay, so some other takes that I backed off. I said Seb Coe has the greatest kick of all time. I don't know. Like, I think there's honestly like potentially Steve Ovett. There's like some other historical kickers that I think might have that. Any of the ones on research, I don't disagree with at all. Like, like people can disagree with me. Maybe one that I'd hedge a little is that your VO2 max can increase by 40% with like very, very frequent high intensity interval training. I think it's probably just like a little more conservative. It's probably closer to 20% for most people. And that 40% is really for people who are totally untrained, totally sedentary, and then just commit to it. I still think that's reasonable. So I wouldn't go back on any of them as much as I'd say hey, let's provide a little bit more nuance and context. And if you read the captions, that's exactly what I do, but nobody reads the captions.
The classic world of social media. Very fair,
Yeah.
very fair. How often do like studies and research get flipped over time? Or is it pretty rare that that happens?
Typically, you're not going to find something just like totally flipped. You might find that if there's like a really big study, like for example, Philip Larson published a study on, this is a guy who invented Nomeo, and he's really the founder of beetroot juice. He published a study that showed that like by like 152 minutes of high intensity interval training could drop, it could make you look diabetic. It could decrease your mitochondrial capacity, and it can do something else, right? So basically, it's like very detrimental. Now, when this study was reproduced, and it really wasn't reproduced, they did like a 30-second sprints as opposed to as much volume as Dr. Larson was doing. It didn't reproduce any of the findings. Well, probably because it wasn't the same intervention. And I think that is probably what you're more likely to see is you're going to find mixed results. That is very common. But typically when you have mixed results, then what that suggests is that the intervention has a mixed response, whether it's individualized or whether it's just a smaller biological effect. And so you need a very, 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 very large sample size to detect it. That's some like statistics jargon, but that's probably more than likely the case. Typically, we're not seeing things completely flip. It's like maybe it's just the effect size is not as big.
I want to do something with you. Your social media, Dr. underscore Evans underscore running. Highly recommend people check it out if you're trying to be faster, trying to be better at running. I want to run through some of your recent posts and we'll test your ball knowledge. We'll test your skill.
Oh boy.
Let's try to keep them as condensed as possible so we can work through as many as possible. First one here, because we're getting a cross country season. Dr. Evans, how do you properly warm up before a 5K?
I would recommend doing 2 300-meter pickups. And I think they take like a gentle recovery. And then I think that was supposed to be 8 to 12 minutes before race time. So they might have even done 3, but 300 to 250-meter pickups with like pretty much full recovery, and then do that like 8 to 12 minutes out, and then do some dynamics and stuff.
How long of a warm up before the 300s?
I think they did like a few miles, maybe like a mile or two.
Okay. What about how does because I've talked to Alex Osberg about this, who knows a little bit of ball knowledge when it comes to science. I shouldn't say a lot. I just don't understand what's good from great in your field, and I don't want to offend you because I know you're cream of the crop. But Alex was telling me sort of like if it's really hot, the warm up should be shorter. What should people do these early season races? Because that was a mistake I made. Early season race, 98 degrees, and I still did my 2 mile warm up. And by the end of it, I was like cooked,
I would cut it. You truthfully, I'll be honest. If you just did like 800 meters and then you did those pickups, you'd be fine. I also think that you should use some pre-cooling methods. Get some ice, put an ice towel around your neck, put it on your wrists. Like there's a theory that the hotter that actually body temperature, core temp is what the main limiter of performance is. It's called critical core temperature theory. So like I think staying cool is very important. And so like hitting yourself with cold water, cutting your warm up a little short, 100% agree with that. Still do the hard pickups though. That's having several different effects that I think are helpful.
What pace should those be at? 5K, faster, slower?
Yeah, I typically recommend pretty fast. Yeah, like close to VO2 max, so between 3K and mile pace. No faster than mile pace. Yeah, they should be pretty hard.
Fascinating. Just warms up your body, gets the systems going.
Yeah, it increases blood bicarbonate, it increases blood CO2, it causes vasodilation, it increases skin blood flow, it does a ton of good stuff.
And for those, at least for me, I'd do, I'd stretch a little 2 mile warm up, dynamics, and then I'd do a bunch of like strides and then spiked up strides. I feel like most people are doing 100-meter strides. Are you still doing strides after the 300-meter pickups or just the 300-meter pickups?
So typically for example, I ran a mile. After those 300-meter pickups, because those are at mile pace, if I'm doing strides, I'm not doing a ton of them. One of the issues that happens when you're before a competition is you're anxious. So you actually are experiencing a lot of arousal. This is a real term. You're very aroused, and your nervous system is all fired up. And Dan Paff talks about this. He's one of the lead coaches at Altus, where Shelby Houlihan runs. And he says, like, typically people over warm up. Like, you don't need to be that warm. It's a function of anxiety. And you're just cranking your nervous system too hard. Now, that's not really a limiter in something like the 5K, so it's probably fine. But if it was like a 400 or 100-meter dash, like, you got to be careful with that kind of stuff. So I think either way, do whatever works for you.
What does warming up actually do for you? And what's the difference between like warming up like your central nervous system versus like, hey, my hamstring can be tight, I got to do these stretches, like your body's actually primed to run fast?
Mm-hmm. So it's going to increase the tissue temperature. And when you do that, your tissue is mostly water. So it decreases the viscosity. So it's more elastic. So when you talk about the hamstring, there you go. It's going to warm up the tendons. Warming up is also analgesic. So if you've got any kinks or slight pain, maybe aches in a tendon or something like that, it's going to alleviate those, right? The other thing that it's going to do is it's going to raise your oxygen consumption, okay? What we don't want is you to start your race and then spike your energy demand, but your oxygen consumption is lagging behind, right? That's actually very bad. So we call this a rate constant oxygen consumption. How quickly your O2 kinetics, how quickly can you reach steady state? When you properly warm up and then you start running, bang, you automatically, you hit it much quicker, like twice as fast. So it decreases that acute debt, O2 debt, where your energy demand is high, but you don't have oxygen. You're doing it basically anaerobically, and that's why you might get gas within the first mile. You're still carrying that fatigue. And you might not really notice that until the end, but that's part of it. As I said before, you're increasing the amount of blood bicarbonate, you're increasing local vasodilation, so blood vessels are opening up, your nervous system is getting prepared. Some of the things that drive that rapid increase in O2, they're just what I was just talking about. Like, all of those things help you to increase energy production in a sustainable manner very, very much more rapidly.
Would you agree that most people fall on the opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to warming up, either too hard or too easy? I'd have high school teammates run with me on warm-ups, yes, and I'm like, 100%. You are close to your 5K pace, slow down. Or 100%. On the opposite end, to the 300-meter pickup type thing, think about your track workouts, and it's like, normally the back half of your workout is when you're running faster, even though you have a body of work on the first half, and it almost does prime your body. Sort of like I think about in the gym now, like a flat bench, right? I'm not just going straight into 235. It's actually quite a lot of work to get to 235. I mean, different sport, but how do you think about that?
100%. Like, you hit the nail on the head. Like, you don't go into a workout and practice and stress, right? Like, some of this is a function of stress. A lot of it too, though, is like the things that drive fatigue in a 5K or an 800 or a mile are not the things that are going to be carrying with you from your warm up. Like I think this is something that happens, right? And like your glycogen stores, how much fuel you have, that does not determine your mile performance whatsoever. Like, unless it's a weight thing, like, doesn't matter. Marathon, different story. Like, even where your baseline oxygen consumption is, like, let's say your heart rate's a little elevated prior to the race, like, not going to matter relative to your 800 performance. Like, it's not going to affect it. In fact, it might just hurt it because of the O2 consumption. Like, there are so many other things that are going to influence it that are agnostic of what you did in your warm up, that I think people get like too in their head about it. And if they just simplified it, they'd be better off.
What's the study that broke the 10% rule, and what is the 10% rule?
That's a treadmill study. So that's the 1% rule. The 10% rule is that you should only increase your mileage by 10% week over week. The study, I can't remember the author, but basically what they showed is your acute to chronic workload. So how much you did in 1 week relative to your load over the past 30 weeks, it should never go 10% over that workload. And it's just your single longest run, actually. Now, the two are correlated. They're not mutually exclusive, your weekly mileage and your single run volume. So that's maybe where people get hung up. But if you run 10 miles 30 days ago, you can run up to 11 miles on any given day without substantially increasing your injury risk.
You brought it up. 1% rule.
That's the 1% treadmill rule by Andy Jones. I think he published it in like 98 or something. I don't know. But Andy Jones, legit researcher, he showed that when you put your treadmill at 1%, it most accurately mimics oxygen consumption, heart rate at level running outdoors. Now, this only really comes into play above about a 630 mile pace because wind resistance isn't meaningful enough. One caveat with this study, when you're running with a pack and you're tucked in, guess what? You're literally getting sucked along. You don't realize it, but you are. So in some cases, like you may not need 1% if you know that, hey, I would have done this workout with a pack of 10 people and I would have been tucked in the back. Guess what? Running at 0% might actually be more similar as long as your treadmill is calibrated.
A personal question, selfishly, why does running on the treadmill feel harder? I feel like it's never felt, the pace never feels what it actually feels like
Really?
outside.
I think that's an individualized,
because I think some people would treadmills?
Say, your treadmill might not be calibrated.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've talked to other people about this.
Do they agree? Do they think it's harder, the treadmill?
I mean, I know people who love the treadmill, but I've talked to people who share, not 100%, but some people I've talked to share a similar experience where it feels way faster than the pace is actually indicating.
Then it's probably the treadmill's not calibrated. Like,
really?
So for example, classic use case, my treadmill in the lab I have downstairs, I was running marathon pace and I was like, this feels really, really hard. You know, I had it at 6 flat and I was like, this feels so hard. So, you know, whatever.
Flex.
Months. Yeah. Thanks. But months go by, right? I check it again and I'm testing people on it now. And I'm like, this data doesn't make sense. Like this dude's lactate threshold says it's 530, but I know his half marathon is at 10 pace. Like this doesn't make sense. So then I wheeled the treadmill and was like, oh my gosh, this thing's speed is 10% off. Like not even a little, it's massively off. So point being is check your treadmills.
Okay. How does someone recalibrate their treadmill?
Well, yeah, it depends on the treadmill, but sometimes you actually have to open it up and adjust the wheel. Sometimes they have a software that you can actually just run to recalibrate it. But unfortunately, it's treadmill dependent. Yeah.
You mentioned lactate threshold. Saw one of your videos. Best lactate measure is your head, something like that. Is that enough to go off of?
Yeah. So that's Gunnar Borg. He came up with the RPE scale, the 6 to 20 scale. And basically what they showed is that your subjective experience of fatigue is strongly correlated with your heart rate and your lactate threshold. So what this means is that even if you don't have a lactate meter, you can use a scale from 6 to 20 to estimate roughly what your threshold pace would be. And when they test this, it's actually incredibly accurate, like surprisingly accurate. So rating of perceived exertion, it's a validated scale. The reason it's 6 to 20 is because 6 correlates with a 60 heart rate and 20 correlates with a 200 heart rate. So you can almost use those numbers to see if it's like bang on the money with your heart rate, and it's usually going to go to with your lactate thresholds. Not
a study yet, but I know you're maybe doing some work on it. Bicarb lotion.
I'm buying the stock. Okay, here's why. So the method that is used in the current lotion that I'm testing is different than what was done by some of the older lotions. So specifically, there's an active ingredient that increases permeability. Secondly, there's a physical process using a roller that increases permeability of the tissue. So it's going to create very small, basically holes in the tissue. So now you're increasing, we talked about diffusion, right? That's going to improve permeability and diffusion of the substrate. So now you've got a special chemical, you've got a physical manifestation, and then there's menthol in it. So that's going to increase blood flow to the surface of the skin. Well, now you're increasing the medium through which this thing is going to get transported into the blood. There's also unpublished data right now in an elite runner, I can't say the name of the person, who tested the lotion. They looked at their hydrogen levels, their CO2 levels, and their pH, and they looked at it with the lotion, and it was very, very similar to what they found with the oral ingestion. Now, whether or not this will generalize to performance, we don't know yet, but like all of the data at this point is pointing to like it's doing something. it's doing something. And my data was highly reproducible when I looked at the mitochondrial capacity data. So I'm going to be doing a whole study on it coming this fall. It's written on my board right there. So I'm excited to like, I believe in it. I've done a lot of studies and very few of them have I seen such consistent islet data with such large effect sizes.
Wow, that's crazy. How much do you think things like, bicarb 3.0, whatever, the lotion that bicarb, chopped bicarb is made, like how much do you think things like that are going to contribute to these faster times across the board?
So in the 800, it's up to 2 seconds, or yeah, 2 or 3 seconds in the 800. In the 400, it's 2 seconds, and then in the mile, it's up to five
What?
seconds in a 5 minute miler. Yeah. So I just did a whole newsletter on this.
Okay, I'm a 5 flat miler, and then I
Mm-hmm.
take bicarb 3.0. I'd run 455, same effort.
455. Yep.
Wow.
100%. Yep. And
Study?
that percent
Factual?
change, yeah, I could find the study. It's in a newsletter. Right now, here's what you're going to do. You're going to open Instagram. You're going to type in DOCTOR_Evans running. You're going to click on the link in my bio. You're going to click newsletter, put in your email. When you do that, you're going to get the most recent newsletter
This guy's a
about
great
bicarb.
marketer.
I know I reference every single bicarb study on both short and long distance, how we came to know that it does work in fact,
What about the
and what
marathon?
modern. So the marathon, this one's tricky. There's not a ton of data on this. There is a study that showed that in cyclists who did a 40-kilometer time trial, it improved performance. If it's improving it in a what would that take them, like an hour? If it's working for that, it's probably working in the marathon. The problem is you've got to train your stomach or else you're going to crap your pants.
Yep. Well, if you're taking big bicarb for sure. If you're taking bicarb
Yeah,
3.0.
if you're taking that big bicarb 3.0, as long as you take it with carbs and adequate water, and the other thing is sometimes you can take it with magnesium. Those
No
things
poopy
can,
pants.
yeah, you want. I've never had issues with bicarb 3.0, especially like literally not even burps or gas if you take it with food. If you take it on an empty stomach first thing in the morning, like what are you doing? Like you're asking for
It's like
problems. Like
taking
that
zinc.
was dumb.
There's one time,
Yeah,
Dr. Evans, I took zinc on an empty stomach. I learned the hard way. That
why'd you
was
do
tough.
that?
I had no clue what I
Why'd
was
you do
doing.
that? That was unwise.
I
I
think I
wouldn't have
threw
done
up.
that. Yeah, don't do that.
Are there any other vitamins like that you can't take on an empty stomach? Do you know of any?
Oh man. So I just made a post or saw a post recently. It had like all these supplements and things that you can and cannot do with them. But I think like for example, I think it's like vitamin D or iron or something you're not supposed to take with caffeine. You're not supposed to take some with vitamin C. Truthfully, I can't remember. I would never
That's
take
fine.
I would never take ibuprofen on an empty stomach. I'll tell you that.
Just don't take ibuprofen in general. That's my take, unless you really have
It's not
to.
great for you. Yeah.
Well, it's just a slippery slope. I went down that slippery slope in high school. It helps, but then your body kind of gets used to it. I think it should be like a last resort. Use it before a race if you really have to and you need to run that race. But don't. It should not be like hard workout. My muscles are sore. Okay, ibuprofen. It's not. You're gonna get a stomach ulcer. What was I going to ask you? Oh, I was going to shift the question. I definitely asked you this last time, but I want to ask you again. What's the supplement stack, unsponsored? Like, what should runners be taking who want to maximize performance?
So I'm coming around on creatine. I wasn't huge on it before. I've been reading more studies on it. I think if you take 5 grams, it's not going to hurt you. I don't think it's going to help you unless you're a sprinter, but not the worst thing. Vitamin D. I'm coming around on vitamin D. I absolutely think there's more studies showing it's called a corticosteroid, so it has some roles in testosterone regulation. Now, the studies on it are not super clear, but like that's one. It's harmless. Like I wouldn't mind doing it. This isn't a supplement, but carbohydrates. Like you have to be eating enough carbohydrates. 60 to 80% of your diet needs to be carbs. Um, Caffeine every day. I mean, take it before your workouts. It absolutely works. If I do not do this, but I also think that fish oils and nitrates like beetroot juice, we know they're helpful, probably more helpful for people with congestive heart failure, but they probably also improve time to exhaustion. So I would say that hard workouts, take Nomeo. Before VO2 workouts, take bicarb. Absolutely. Nomeo or other NRF2 supplements. I don't know if other ones exist, but yeah. So let's see. I'm missing anything.
No
Whey
vitamin
protein
C?
is vitamin C is fine. It's
Keeps you
a
healthy,
water
bro.
soluble. Yeah, it's water soluble. The studies on vitamin C actually aren't great in terms of preventing infection. But like vitamin C is
That's
fine.
crap,
It's
bro.
it's
I don't get sick anymore
listen,
because I take vitamin C. I'm gonna be the angry guy in your comments right now.
dude, it's
Vitamin
fine.
C
I can
every
handle
day.
it.
Talk to my mom.
That's why you post and ghosts. Are you still taking Flintstone vitamins? Because you should be. I think they're great,
What do I take? It is
dude. Who knows? You
vitamin
probably
C
have
with
a
rose hips
little baggie
by,
of horse pills.
let me see, Solray Vitamin C.
One other supplement I'm interested in right now is Shilajit. I'm also interested in ketones. I don't know much about these, but again,
Just
I'm
wait till
interested in
Ketone
them.
IQ comes knocking on your door. They've offered me stuff
Well,
before. I don't believe
okay.
in it.
I'm
I don't believe in it.
really
They offer people a bag. Their marketing strategy is genius, but I think half the people who promote it, it tastes like shit. I don't know if it does anything.
I
It's a good
forgot it. I mean,
marketing fluke.
I don't know enough about it, but I wanna look into it because I want to see what it does. And then I'm
Can
probably
I
forgetting
fund a
some.
study to show that it's a farce product?
Well, we're already running into conflicts of interest, but yeah, 100%. Pay me. I'll do it. I'll do the
No,
study.
no, no. I don't. I mean, like, let me be very clear.
I know we're joking. We are
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
joking.
Yeah, we're joking. For legal reasons, this is a joke.
Yeah,
But what
exactly.
I will say is just I have an issue with the sort of influencer products, and I think that's the one company that I saw over my feed for 2 years straight. And I just hate when you get the feeling that people are bought out. And I actually confronted an influencer about it in person. Massive guy, over 1 million followers now. Um,
Why'd you do that?
and I said, dude, there's no way you believe in this. And he goes, I don't, but they pay well. And stuff like that is what really makes me frustrated with companies where I'm like, companies should vet you to the point where you really believe in the product. And
Hmm.
you also just told me your character because you said you would promote something to innocent people who trust you because they're paying you a certain amount. So that's the one company like BPN, anyone who is sponsored by BPN, I don't think you get this feeling that they don't believe in the products. I believe in the
Hmm.
products. Do I think their gel is like the greatest thing on the market? I honestly don't know, but have I used it for my marathons? Yeah. Has it been fine? Yeah. Is there whey protein? Great. Yeah.
Yeah, I have an athlete right now, Hannah. Her name's Hannah, but she um she said that's the only gel she can take, and
BPN?
so I'm interested. Yeah, so I'm interested in
Well,
trying it. I took forget what I took for my last one, but I want to try that because like I get a lot of indigestion. I have a lot of issues, like so I'm interested in definitely
the
trying
thing I really
that.
like about, I did Morton in high school. The thing I like about BPNs
Whoa,
is
we don't say their name, dude.
big bicarb, big bicarb, big bicarb. No, I just pissed off Riley and BPN all at once. Crazy. Is like it was the substance was weird. It was very you were like sort of like swallowing these clumps
Slime.
of yeah
Yeah,
slime. That's
it's
good. Good point.
alginate. It's literally
Versus
alginate.
BPN tastes like baby food, like really sweet baby food. It's just really easy to just like hawk down in the middle of a marathon. Whereas if you
Mm.
have sort of like acid reflux or gag reflex, I feel like Morton was a rough road
So
that way. So
I took the Big M during one of my marathons and I almost threw up at mile 20 because
wow.
it was literally so hard to get down. And it was the caffeine one, which tastes
Man,
horrible.
this is tough. Tough looks, man.
Um,
Poopy pants, throwing up. It's a tough day to be big bicarb.
um, there was, I forgot what I was going to say. Doesn't matter. But I would say that those are all fair game supplements. For context, the four supplements that work: caffeine, bicarb, uh, nitrates, and beta alanine.
Okay.
Those are the ones that work.
Oh,
Oh,
brother, do I have
creatine.
a story
Creatine's on
for
there
you?
too. Creatine's on there too.
Tell me, because I'm an idiot, does Dominic taking zinc on an empty stomach took BPN pre workout, which is
Oh
cracked.
boy.
I took it too early, man. I get in the car and my like butt is itchy. I'm like, what did I do? I was itchy, bro. I was tweaking all day. I had a great workout
You're,
that morning. I was tweaking all because pre workout has beta alanine in it. That's what
oh, it's
makes you
got beta
itchy.
alanine, caffeine, L-citrulline. It's
Dude,
got
explain
everything
what
in it.
happened in my body. I was itchy for 12 hours, bro. I only had
Yeah,
one scoop.
that's paresthesia. That's just like textbook symptom of beta alanine. It gets better if you keep taking it.
I was itchy all day, dude. I could not concentrate.
That's one supplement I've never taken and I want to, but I'm afraid of the itch.
I'll get BPN pre workout sent to you. But I texted some people. The problem was I should have taken it sips throughout my workout, or they actually say this, and I just didn't read the label. You sort of condition your body you take a half scoop rather than a full scoop. Not only did I take a full scoop, but I did it
You chugged it.
before getting in the car to go to the gym at 7 a.m. And I was itchy all day. I was like, incredible
On an
product.
empty stomach?
No, not an empty stomach. I wasn't that dumb, but just slightly dumb. Like, great product. I've taken it since. I really like their that's their pre. I really like their pump because their pump doesn't have any caffeine, so you can like take it in the evenings and stuff. But I laugh because I'm an idiot. Okay, beta alanine. Okay, I got to research this. So that's my funny story.
Dude.
Okay, cross country runner listening. What's one way they can improve their season?
I was gonna tell them a joke, but I would tell them do as much threshold as possible, as much as you can possibly do, and stay healthy. And make sure that it's not all coming in the form of 3-minute repeats. Some of it needs to be 10 to 20 minutes in length. You need to be doing continuous efforts.
Where's 3 minutes?
3 minutes is like that's kind of the vanilla Marius Bakken, like 1K. He likes 10 by 1K. That's kind of a standard double threshold interval. And so 10 by 3 minutes is pretty standard. So that's kind of where that comes from, because like elite runners run a 3-minute 1K. So it tends to be their threshold. So yeah, definitely do that, and do some form of lifting or plyo. The other thing to keep in mind is like your success or failures this season are determined today. In fact, they were determined a month ago. Like, you should have the idea that you're going to get burned out. Heard this a lot recently from a lot of athletes. That is between the ears in some ways. Yeah, there's a physiological rationale at some level, but oftentimes the goal for cross-country runners in high school is to be as fit as you can by September 10th, right? And then really just maintain throughout the rest of the season, because you're going to be stressed. You're going to have tons of races. You've got other things going on. It's hard to keep gaining fitness when you're racing. So, you don't have the privilege of being a professional athlete. You're not, you're a high schooler. So you need to get as fit as you can now and then maintain that fitness through the season. Now, if you don't have that benefit, go sign up for coaching. All right. Come talk to me. No, but seriously, like, talk to
That's not
someone.
bad. You can plug yourself. I'm all about plugging your coaches.
I don't mind. Yeah, you can. Seriously though, like, you need to talk to someone who knows what they're doing, who can talk you through how to approach each race. Maybe if you need to do a little threshold after the race, what to do with your volume. Those are the types of things that a coach is going to help you with, so that you're not peaking in September. Like, that's not what you want. So I would say that would be my tip.
Final subject I want to cover with you. I'm going to get a call from your wife any second now, pissed off that I've been talking to you for 2 hours. You got to get home.
Should he call me twice? It's fine.
Okay. Hopefully this is high ROI for the Evans family coming on the Running Effect podcast. So hybrid training, you said it would get brought up in the beginning. So I want to make you look good by me bringing it up so that I can say you were right. But selfishly for me, I think I'm in this dilemma right now where I put on a ton of muscle over the past year. The PED allegations are coming in, which I love, because I would say the biggest performance enhancer I'm on is Tonkat Ali, maybe, because it does boost natural testosterone, carbs, protein, pound of steak from Whole Foods, that type of stuff. And if I can get a company to pay me to run a marathon this fall, like in terms of doing content and stuff, I do think I might go for a sub 3 off of like 10 weeks, 11 weeks of training. The classic mediocre, you run 2:59, you feel good about yourself because of the sub 3 trend on social media. So why we've made a 2:59 marathon so glorious on social media, I'm not sure. But I think my worry is that if I start, running any more than I have been, which is very inconsistent and just short distances, I'll lose muscle. Trevor's really the only guy I've seen. Like, just tell me, is it possible I'm not trying to necessarily gain strength if I really go all in on the marathon, but I don't want to lose it. Is it possible to maintain and do, because I think I could run a sub 3 off of minimal training.
Yeah, it depends how much you do. I think what I would do is I would benchmark it. Like, if you really wanted to be scientific, I would make sure you have a session in there per week that's like a benchmark session. So, like, in your programming during those 10 weeks, make sure you've got like some consistent or relatively consistent part of your workout that's like, okay, this is my benchmark set. Maybe it's after your warm up, you do 5 reps at 225 or whatever it is, you know? And if you start to see that that's dropping off, then chances are you're cutting your volume is too high of running. Running will absolutely decrease your strength. It's called the interference effect. It does happen. So, but it's not going to completely eliminate it.
But at
So
what
if you
point?
want to
At what
make,
point of running? Because I don't think I need to run that much, relatively
I
speaking.
mean, I can't give you a definitive number, but if I'm just going subject matter expertise, like off the dome, I think you could run 30 to 40 miles a week and be fine. You'd probably not see too much of a
Great.
drop. I
That
think
sounds lovely.
when you start pushing like 60 to 80, you're going to start to see
That's
some
not going
things.
to be me. I'll get injured.
But I think the thing I was going to say is like if you're eating enough, you're going to be fine.
How do you
If
train your
you eat
stomach? That's
enough,
my issue. I can't eat
well,
enough.
I'm not saying during the run. I'm saying in general.
I know that I still have stomach
Oh,
issues.
do you know
I
how
store
you
stress
do
in
it?
my gut.
This is
Shakes?
insane. Do you know? No. Do you know how they actually do this? They have them eat watermelon. So like basically what they'll do is they'll eat like you train like literally train like a professional eater. They like stretch their gut out and then they like that's like how they precondition to eat a lot. So look up some stuff with professional eaters. That's my tip. But
Joey
also, dude,
Chestnut.
just eat. Yeah, Joey Chestnut.
He's liked some of my stuff before. Future podcast guest, maybe.
Kobayashi, Joey Chestnut. This is your call. I was gonna say eat often too. Like eat all day, and eat calorically dense things. Like do some shots of olive oil if you're really hurting. You know you won't lose that much strength. You really won't.
I gotta marry a professional chef, man. I don't got time.
Maybe a few percent, like 5-10 pounds off your bench, maybe 15 tops. It's not that much.
Any professional chefs listening, send in your application to be my wife to Dr. Bill Evans. Shoot him a DM. I love cooking. I just don't have, the problem is I don't want it enough. That's the problem. But I think the problem is I say I don't have enough time. And it takes a while to cook healthy, nutritious meals.
Cooking on your own stinks.
Sucks. Yeah. So I'm trying to get better at that. I cook. I just don't eat enough. I've noticed this. I really struggle to put down food in the morning, but then I eat a ton the back half of the day. But then that affects your sleep. Apparently, you're not supposed to eat a ton before bed.
I think if you do it every day, you're fine.
Okay.
You're conditioned. You'll learn.
Hey, any final notes for the people other than follow, subscribe, and pay you money to coach them? Anything else?
Dang, there was a 3 I was going to say. I would say final notes for the people. What I would say, this is maybe non-conventional for me, but don't be afraid of success. I think don't be afraid of success. It is easy to sit there every day and feel like you're an imposter. And I get this all the time. And Danny Mackey, Josh Kerr's coach, gets it, and Pete Julian gets it, and every famous person I've had on the podcast. If you'd have told me a year ago when I had 0 followers, I started my Instagram about a year ago today, that I would be interviewing Josh Kerr, the Olympic world record holder's coach, and that he would invite me to Brooks headquarters to check out their sports science facility, I'd say you're crazy. If you tell me that I'd have companies wanting to collaborate with me, I'd say you're crazy. If you told me that I'd be on this podcast, I'd say you're crazy. And yet here I am. And it's intimidating. It's scary. Failure is scary, but don't be afraid of success. Like you're in the position that you're in, including you, Dom, for a reason. And you have control of that. Now, not everything, but if you let fear drive you, you're never going to take a risk. And I think that would be the thing I want to leave the people with.
Great words. I will restrict myself from replying. Otherwise, we will be here for another hour. So I appreciate you, man. You do great work, and I always love talking to you. Congrats on all the success. Well deserved, and just a glimpse of everything in the future.
All right. Thanks for having me, man.